Okay, so we're recording. Hello, this is Scott Hedley playing as DamitScottie in Poker Stars. Hopefully I don't stutter too much. I don't do these too often, but this is a hand history review of the 463 hands that it took me to go from 5,000 chips to all 1.77 million chips in the Big 33 when I won it for nearly $2,000 US. This video will show kind of some of my thought processes and just kind of like I'll let you debate in the comments and stuff about some of the decisions I make, because a lot of the stuff I do is stuff where I try to exploit my opponents. I'm not very good at cash games. I prefer tournaments much more. I'm more of a tournament dog, to say the least, for anybody who actually knows how to win at cash games in the long run. I've tried playing those, and I'm basically break even, slight loser, and slight winner, slight loser. Honestly, it's pretty break even. I don't have a very big sample size. I find tournaments a bit more entertaining because I like going through, the whole passage of, accumulating chips, going up the payouts. And when you're at those high payouts, I like the idea of folding to earn money. And I'm just going to pause this for a sec. I need to write a note. Let's see, just pause the video. And we're back. And my thought is that, by the way, that pause was just so I can put a note on my door so nobody disturbs me during this recording. My thought is that I'll probably do a few parts of this, maybe like one for every 100 or so hands. So we have like somewhere between 2 and 5 parts. And without further ado, I'll get going and we'll kind of take it from there and hope for the best. At the beginning, I played pretty tight, standard stuff. I start with 167 big blinds. The stats don't matter too much except for, we'll look at the pre-flop stuff at the beginning. The top row, after like saying the name, how many big blinds we have, and number of hands we have on this player. It shows things like BPIP, PFR. The reason why there's a big gap is because I defend so much from the big blind. Pre-flop 3-bet, pre-flop folded 3-bet, and then pre-flop 4-bet. And I think the 4-bet is way too high. I think it's because I was trying something out in cash games at one point where I was 4-betting like way too frequently, and that kind of skewed the results. And then like the next 2 rows after that are for flop and turn, and the only reason why there's an extra couple stats on the end is for post flop, like I think it's post flop aggression and the frequency of this post flop aggression, something like that. Basically, I just know the higher the numbers, the more aggressive they are. And then these are like c-bet numbers, so I only c-bet 43%, both streets. And then there's fold the c-bet. I don't fold the c-bet too much. I just kind of like to float, see where opponents are at. Basically, because I know that in tournaments, a lot of players over c-bet, so I can float with a much wider range of holdings. And then we have the donk bet on the next 2 lines. Basically, it's donking flop. I don't donk the flop that much, like at all. Generally, I think I only donk if like it's a limp pot because there's no pre-flop aggression, so nobody has a stronger range. And then like on the turn, I'll donk a little bit more just in some spots where it's like the turn pairs like the middle card, which is more in my range than their range. And so I can balance that betting when I actually have that turned trips, or if I have a draw that I've called with on the flop, I now can lead with on the turn because that card will generally hit my range much more strongly. And then after that I have like raising. So this is the flop raise and turn raise. And the reason why those are so low is because I don't usually raise until the river. But I will raise flop and turn sometimes in some spots, especially in tournaments when sometimes you have to get the money in before the river. That's why I do enjoy the skill aspect of cash games, because you can play your decisions like all the way to the river and play a multi-street game. I do enjoy multi-street poker more, and that's why I play fewer tournaments at once. I used to play like up to 8 or 9 MTTs like at once, but I was not very successful because I would generally only be playing primarily a pre-flop and flop game. Then I learned some stuff, a lot of it through Ali Mzirovic and talking with 2 Slovenians, Rocky and Luka, as well as my learnings from grips poker and upswing poker. I learned how to play a more complete game of pre-flop, flop, turn, and river. And that isn't to say that I'm, perfect by any means. I know I'm pretty bad in comparison to a lot of the great players, but at the same time, I've come a long way from where I've been in the past. So I'll get started. I fold 5-8, ace-jack off. I was multi-tabling. When this deep, I can go either way on an open from under the gun, ace-jack off. Ace-queen off, I'm definitely opening, and ace-10 off, I'm definitely not. In this case, I like to fold, but I don't mind opening or folding this deep. Let's click through, limp pot. We see a flop at 6-3, nothing happens, so we just fold. 10-9 suited. So it comes to us here. I like to 3-bet. And the reason why I like to 3-bet is because versus an under the gun opening range, they're going to be a little bit on the tighter side in general against a random opponent. Like you see, we have 32 hands, so we have no history with this opponent at all. I don't have like any history on these opponents. You'll see this tournament was at 1 a.m. my time. My sleep schedule's kind of messed up right now. But I know the tournaments and PokerStars at this time do have fewer players, and the players are pretty bad relative to the buy-ins, so it's much better value in my opinion. And you know, when I'm against random opponents like this, you know, I have to just kind of go with, you know, more standard things for my opinion, just against the general population. By the way, there were 354 people in this tournament that started, which I do like as well with the early morning night times, is that the variance will be a little bit lower and that the fields will be smaller for these tournaments. For my 3-bets, what I choose to do is I tend to exploit the player pool in the early stages of these tournaments, because they're generally only going to be 4-betting with aces, kings, and some queens and ace-king. And they're not going to have that many 4-bet bluffs in these early stages because, you know, not many people are even 3-betting that light in the early stages. It's unless you're like, you know what you're doing. So if I'm going to choose any of my 3-bet bluffs, they're going to be hands that I don't feel comfortable calling with. Like I'd call here with Queen Jack suited and 10 jacks and Jack 10 suited, I'm thinking. And then like I can 3-bet hands like Queen 10 suited. I could go either way with calling and 3-betting, but definitely Jack 9 suited. And those kind of like hands around there, those suited connectors, suited gappers that are like, you know, kind of a little bit weak to just call with. And then I'll have some suited aces, weak suited aces that I'll do that with as well. Just because with these hands, you can turn them into semi-bluffs and then like, you know, value hands post-flop when you like make nutted holdings. And that's why the suited ace is so good, because you can make nut flushes. And especially when you're this deep, it's a great way to get all the money in. So in the early stages, I never choose my offsuit hands for bluffs, I'm thinking. There's probably a situation or two, but for the vast majority, it's connecting hands that are suited. And we get a fold. Next hand. Clicking through this because I do go for a lot of steals from late position, just because you know how much dead money there is. Tournaments of PokerStars now start with antes at the beginning, which I do like, because you can better take advantage of players who are overfolding. Click through, ace 9 suited. Sorry if the clicking is too loud, by the way. I used to have a laptop. If you see my grips video from when I luckboxed, I do say luckboxed because I got very lucky. I didn't know what I was doing for the most part. When I luckboxed like 14.5K American from a $27 turbo knockout tournament from like October 2015. I was using my laptop at that point, and from the money I was able to win, I got an actual desktop computer and like setup. So everything should be smoother now. Open, get folds. Fold that. Fold, fold. Okay, let's go here. I can go either way with defending this and not. With versus a 3x, we need 26% equity, and we're not going to realize all our equity because we're out of position. Especially versus an unknown player, we have to play pretty straightforward. I find I like defending more when I better know how to exploit my opponents by having more statistics on them, more like hands. And generally versus a 3x in the spot, I'm kind of thinking that the worst hands that I'd be defending with that are offsuit would probably be 10-8 off and like Queen 9 off. Jack 8 off, I could go either way. But basically, it's like I want to have kind of Broadway cards if they're like unsuited, if they're offsuit, or like connecting cards that are like higher. Okay, not going to play 2-8, Queen 10. Let's see what's up. I go over 3-bet, just when I talked about not 3-betting offsuit hands. When I do 3-bet my offsuit hands, they're going to be in position. I'm going to want to have position when I 3-bet my offsuit hands because they're going to be more difficult to play. Just because you're going to not know where you're at for the most part in comparison to the suited hands and the suited connectors. I choose Broadway cards like this because they better block the hands that he'll continue with. Like he has like fewer combos now of like ace queen, pocket queens, you know, pocket tens, but for the most part that queen, anytime you have an ace, king, or queen in your hand, it's a very good blocker to the types of hands that he can continue with versus the 3-bet. Now when we get a call here versus in a 3-bet, you know, I generally am not going to continue bluffing because he's going to have a relatively strong range, but nothing that he wants to go crazy with. So a lot of the time he's going to have here like pocket sevens through jacks, and the kind of hands he'll have as well, some king queen suited, like king jack suited. I'm trying to think. It's those kind of like middling strong hands, like better than middling but not really great enough. He does fold, by the way. So on this board, like I could c-bet, but like I'd rather delay c-bet if I'm going to. And then in a deuce, he checks. And if anything here, I'm kind of thinking, because this doesn't change much, I'm thinking he wants to take a hand to showdown. We'll see what he does in the river. There's a queen, he checks. I do go for a value bet here, and he folds. Just in case he had a hand like pocket tens or pocket eights, for instance, that, you know, would play pretty similarly if he's not aggressive. So we win that. Jack 7, I'm pretty sure I don't play. Fold that as well, fold that as well. Pocket threes. Normally, like here's my rule kind of for playing these pocket pairs in early position. We're deep stacked, so I play it as a set mine. So if I play pocket pairs that are small from early position as a set mine. So the only way I'd open them is if I'm open shoving, if I have like only like 10 big blinds, something like that, or if I'm really deep and I can call a raise and still set mine if I need to, or you know, if I get a bunch of callers, I only continue if I flop a set. And we're deep enough here that if somebody does 3-bet me, I probably still have the implied odds to call. So it would still work out just fine. Get a call, checking back, this is his range well, he bets, we fold. It's just that simple, because there's no way I can really continue. Like I could continue and call one, but with pocket threes, it's just so weak, there's no point. Normally from this position, I think the lowest pocket pair I'd open, like for value that I'd play straight up, would be pocket sevens. I don't see myself playing deuce 10. Ace deuce, let's see what's up. I raise on the button, get a call. I check back. Some people be like, you should do a small c-bet here, but I don't c-bet that much. If you c-bet a lot, then you have to c-bet more of these weaker hands. But if you're gonna be like, you remember me with the queen 10, if you're gonna c-bet a little less on the flop, then you can have more hands that are what's called category 2 in terms of upswing poker hand rankings. If they're a hand that's, you know, strong enough to continue with but not strong enough to bet yourself, then I'm not going to be betting on this flop, and I can, you know, bet on the future streets when I have a more clear idea where I'm at in the hand, and also, you know, the pot size isn't too big. So we get a bet into here, and I call. He's betting on the larger side, and we get bet into again. And my thinking process here is more along the lines of what bluffs does he have. Like I'm trying to think, he'd have to be bluffing with something completely random, like it could be like a queen jack or a queen 10, but at the same time, he'll have enough like king 8s, you know, king 5s, maybe like even some ace 5s. We block some aces. It's just like he'll have enough 2-pair plus combos more than bluffs. I'm feeling that it's fine just to fold. We have better hands we can continue with. Like if we have like ace 8, or if we flop, you know, top set of aces, we continue. Because I would check that, by the way, on a dry board like this, even blind versus blind, I would check top set. That way I have a balanced checking back range, or at least a more balanced. Obviously I have more weaker hands than stronger hands. Okay, fold that, fold that, fold that. We get pocket queens, we'll see what's up. We get a raise. I'm 3-betting this for value. Go on the larger side. You know, even though we're 100 big blinds deep, queens are the 3rd best hand you can have. So honestly, if he wants to get the money in, go ahead. There's enough players that will go for all the money here with like 10s and jacks. You know, ace king off we're slight favorite against, and he's going to have ace queen sometimes, even though we block that. So I'm fine with getting the money in. He makes it 1200. It's an unknown player. We have some actually hands on him, 142, but still, you know, big blind versus button. If we're coolered aces against, you know, aces or kings against our queens, then, you know, that just sucks. This is the worst hand I'm going with, by the way. In this spot, for 100 big blinds, I'm going with ace king suited and queens plus. I don't know if that's correct, but I mean, I'm not gonna. If he makes it, if he raises the side, for what it's worth too, I'd 3-bet a little bit smaller with my ace king offsuit hands. That's something that people could exploit for me. That way, if he does 4-bet, I can just call and not have to get it all in, because now it's kind of committing. You know, if I had ace king off here and he makes it this size, I'm kind of thinking along my head, now I have to 5-bet jam, because I can't just call here with how much money I've invested already. So that's why I would 3-bet to something smaller, like, you know, 375, and then he'd 4-bet to like 900, and then that way I'd call with ace king offsuit. You know, ace king suited just plays that much better against hands like, you know, ace king or aces, kings. And also, by going with just ace king suited instead of ace king off as well, it cuts my combos of ace king that I'm going with, you know, like by 75%. That way I don't go with too many ace kings, because ace king is often going to be slightly behind or very behind when going all in or chopping. The reason why you go with it still is because there's enough ace kings that they'll go with as well. Anyway, enough of me rambling. We get it all in. He has ace king off here for what it's worth, and we hold. Yeah, you would think it'd be scary if he had a diamond. He had no diamond, so we're okay. So, you know, easy double at the beginning. Keep going through. Fold to the button, fold jack 4, fold 4, 10, fold 7, 4. Not much happens at this point, I remember that. We get moved to a new table. I'll move the stats over a bit, so you're not going to see the stats as much. The reason why I don't move it down is because I want you to see like the pot odds we have. That's what this is down here. I want you to see the pot odds in some spots when I make calls or stuff like that. Let's see what I do with 5-4. Okay, I was going to defend versus that, but not once we get a 3-bet in there. 10-5, no. Jack 7 suited. I go for a steal, get a call. I see bet on this board, we have a gut shot, and we have the betting lead, so we're going to have a general range advantage. I'm going to bet on the smaller side, like 50%, 40% versus a big blind defending range, because they're going to have such a wide range of hands that they're going to, on average, be weaker. We take it down. Let's go with King Jack. I elect a 4-bet, again, going with the offsuit broadways in position versus Dazzy. He calls. You can go either way with this flop. I prefer a check. He's going to have some hands in his range. Like, it's a spot where not much is going to change. Like, you could c-bet this board. If we had King 10 and it was a 10-eye flop, I'd definitely be c-betting small. Like, I always c-bet small with my after my 3-bets pre-flop. The reason for this is because, you know, if a king rolls off, it's fine. We're only worried about an ace or a queen. And in this spot, the types of hands that he'll call 3-bet with are, he'll have some ace-jack for sure when he calls 3-bets. So it's not like we're going to be, you know, betting for value confidently in this spot. I don't want to build a huge pot, and there's not much we have to be worried about, so we can delay c-bet for sure. I delay c-bet with enough hands here that I'm fine. Like, I'll delay c-bet with my pocket 10s and other category 2 hands, but I'll also delay c-bet here with my pocket jacks, so when I flop top set. And for what it's worth, if this was a jack of hearts, and so it was like 3 of hearts, jack of hearts, and I had pocket aces with like the ace of hearts, I can elect to just, you know, check back the flop if we are a little more shallow, and Dazzy is known to get aggressive when the flop checks through, so I can have that in my range to check back. He checks again, and we start going for value, and he folds. Fold 5-8, fold 5-3, fold 2-4. Oh, wait, pocket deuces. Let's see what I do. I fold. It's because at this point, I know that a lot of the stacks are around 5K, so at this point, people only have like 29 bigs, 54 bigs, 38 bigs to their stack. So even though we have 130 big blinds, when we have pocket deuces, it's a spot where other players don't have that kind of stack that can give us implied odds to go with it, so I just fold. And I think the lowest pocket pair I'd open from this spot here is pocket 6s. Could open 5s. Definitely not 4s though. Too weak. Okay, Jack 9. We see calls. We need 13% to continue, so we call with Jack 9. We do flop a Jack, which is great. We see 1-bet. We will continue. And this is a fairly dry board. There really only is a flush draw. So if I had like a set of 6s here, especially if I didn't have the 6 of hearts, because then if the 6 of hearts comes, you know, people who have flush draws just got reverse implied. You know, they're just drawing dead against my quads. But if I had pocket 6s here, I would just call. I wouldn't raise, because on this dry board, if we're raising those made hands, then we have very few strong hands we're just check calling with. Because when I defend here, I'm going to have a lot of weaker hands that I'm going to want to check call with. And I don't want to get exploited by only having weak hands in my check calling range, so I got to have strong hands as well. And that's the importance of being able to play strongly on later streets, by keeping a pretty balanced range in the early streets and delaying the big decisions to later streets, where generally players will have, you know, a weaker understanding of what to do in tournaments. So it went, you know, bet, call on the flop. I check again, and this is kind of disgusting. I can't bet here because I'm the one who's most likely to have a 4. So if I was bluffing, this would be a great spot to bluff. But the thing is, I have a value hand that's strong enough to continue with, so I'll let other players bluff. He will have some pocket fours in his range, and he will have some too, but it's very rare. However, if they bet large, I'm willing to give it up. He bets 480. Oh, whoops. We only need 19% to call, so basically, you know, 1 in 5 times we have to be good. Unfortunately, he had pocket fours, but I'm fine with paying it off there. It's such a small bet. That's why you generally should bet larger. Like, obviously, he would have gotten me to fold, but if he's balanced enough and knows how to bluff correctly, it's just so much better to be able to put large bets in spots, you know, where opponents can be capped. And the thing is, we're not capped there, so the small bet's actually fine because we can have a 4 in our range. So I'm okay with it. You got to think about your villain's range and how your range is perceived whenever you make your bet sizes, not generally just on the strength of your hand. We get ace king suited. We are 3-betting for value. You get 560. We get a call. Pretty bad flop. We're just gonna check back because we have, you know, a decent hand right here. But there's no point inflating the pot by a c-bet, you know, because there's gonna be so many hands he continues with. Like if he has pocket 8s here, he's gonna call a flop bet. So there's nothing that we're, you know, losing to right now that is gonna fold to a flop c-bet. And I'm not willing to barrel off. So I'm just gonna check back and evaluate on the turn, which we turn a king. He checks. We're gonna start betting 6-11. If he check raises, it's pretty gross because then, you know, we got to check out the sizings. You know, we'd probably, if he check raised here, we'd probably call 1 because, you know, we can still, you know, river a 10, an offsuit 10 for the nuts. And we can, you know, make another king or an ace and see what's up. Go from there. Or if, like, it turns a queen, like a river's a queen, you know, that's tough for him to have as well because then he'd have to have a boat. And he doesn't have that many, like, queens in his range when he's doing that. It's one of those things where you just have to evaluate based on their bet sizing and the river card, what kind of range they're going to have. They're going to have more bluffs or value hands in their range. In this case, he just folds. We go on to 3 deuce. We fold. Fold that. Fold. 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 I'm pretty sure we fold. It'd be bad if we open from there with that. We got king queen. And we defend. Pretty bad flop. However, he checks back. And whenever I see players checking back on here, they're very weak in tournaments. They are not balanced at all. Unless he specifically has 8-9 of clubs, maybe 8-9 of hearts. He never has anything good here. Could have aces actually. Could have the ace with the ace of clubs. If I know him to be more balanced, you know, then I'm not going to go after it as much. But when a 4 comes, I don't have any blockers for what it's worth. But a good tactic is to bet small on the turn and to bet much larger on the river. That gets players to fold. This is an exploitative tactic. This gets players to hold a lot in these stages if they don't know how to read hands that well, because they're just going to assume, oh, he must have it. You know, trying to get some value in the turn and then like get big value on the river. That's what they always assume. In this case, he just folds. And for what it's worth, you can definitely have ace highs, so it's not like we're, you know, beating all the hands that, you know, not like we're bluffing with the best hand there. We can be, but as well, it's definitely not super likely. We open on the button. We get folds. It's good to try whenever it's folded to, you know, go for it, but you always want to have a decent hand. Like if it folded to me with 5-9, I would not have opened because we're still, you know, out of position if the button calls, and we just have a hand that plays terribly. Fold, fold, pocket 10s. We'll see what's up. I raise. We get a call. We get another call. Pretty bad flop. It's not great. We'll just check. See what's up on the turn. And another bad turn card too. He bets. Now I was distracted. Something was going on at another table, so I wasn't able to think through this clearly. I should have peeled 1 in my opinion, but for some reason I looked over and saw a stack size and thought, oh, he's just going to bomb the river every time, and I folded. This is a very nitty fold, and I think it's incorrect. I should definitely have peeled the turn here and see if he shut down on the river. Obviously, he can just barrel bluff, but at the same time, a lot of players don't have like the balls per se for their tournament life in this spot, especially versus like a spot where I can have kings full to, you know, bluff that river, bluff jam. So I should have peeled because he can definitely have draws here. There's all 6-5 and there's all clubs and there's all diamonds that he can be bluffing with. So he has a lot of bluffs here. So this is a very bad fold by me on the turn. It's a spot where I should call the turn and then fold if he jams in the river. Unless, of course, I improve to 10s full. So that's a mistake. So this is proof that you can still win tournaments even after making mistakes in the tournaments. It is possible. You just got to stay focused. I would have opened for what it's worth, but I'm not going to like call with ace jack off after there's an open, and I'm not going to 3-bet, so I'll just fold. Fold. The reason why I don't call is because it caps my range. I don't often have aces. We actually get a walk. Sweet. And I'm going to fold 6 deuce. What happens to 4 or 5? For what it's worth, if he had a deeper stack, I would have elected for a 3-bet here. The hand is too weak to call with. The kind of hands, the suited, the true connecting hands that I'd call with would be probably the lowest would be 8-7, definitely 9-8. 8-7 I could go for 3-bet or a call. Depends on the opening range of the player. If they're looser, I think the way it works, I get confused on this. If you're looser, I know if you're tighter, it depends on the stack size. Because if they're tighter and you call with 8-7, it's for implied odds, so you should be deeper stacked. And I know if you're looser and you're like shallower stacked, you can 3-bet it because they're opening way too wide and you're not going to get paid off if you make your straight. Something along those lines. Somebody can correct me for sure. I'd appreciate that. Sorry if I ramble, by the way. I don't do this that much. I fold this, fold that. So you can see all that's really happened is we've doubled with queens against ace king so far. 67 hands in the tournament. Not much has gone down. We do defend here. We need a 20% equity. We called. Flop a 6. So that's pretty good. I never lead for what it's worth. Some people are like, you should lead here. You have a good hand. He has an uncapped range. For what it's worth, he could have you know 3-4 suited. He could have aces. We don't know his range yet, so we're still checking it to him because we in general won't have aces, but he can definitely have aces. So his range is going to be stronger. So we check to the guy who's got the stronger range. It doesn't mean that we have the weakest hand. I would check here if I had ace deuce as well. So. 4, so we're going to start betting now that he's checked back this flop. He calls. This river's interesting because we can have all the flushes when we're betting. We can have trips. We can have, like, you know, if we had ace deuce, we can have pocket 4s, we can have pocket 6s. But we have here actually one of the weakest hands we're going to be betting for value in case he decides. I'm not sure actually. This is an interesting card because what are we going to get called by? I did elect to bet 6.99, but I'm trying to think now what I can be called by and be good. If he has, like, I guess, like, pocket, if he has like ace 8, but why would he float with that? I actually have no idea what he can have here. This is not a great bet for me in hindsight. He does end up raising, and I do end up folding. And the reason why I fold is because when he raises here, we have so many better hands that we can continue with. Like if we had a flush, we bet call. If we had a boat, if we had trips, sorry, like ace deuce, like I've said before, or any other deuce, jack deuce suited, you know, we bet call. If we have pocket 4s, I'd still probably bet call because he could have the one combo of quad 2s and the one combo of 6s full, and the how many combos is that? 3 combos of pocket 8s. So I'd bet call. I wouldn't want to raise. There's not enough that I'm getting value out of that he's raising here. Could be a mistake, because he could also have slow paid aces, but it depends if I think he's going to call with the aces or not. I would definitely bet jam quads, obviously, 6s full, and 8s full. And if I was going to go for a bluff here, this would be a good time to bluff because I have blockers to 6s full and 8s full. But I don't know enough about this opponent to know what kind of range he's going to have. And I'm going to assume he has more value. If he gets more out of line, I could definitely see myself 3-bet bluff jamming this river because I have blockers to nut-hit hands, like 6s full and 8s full. But I do fold. And that's actually an interesting spot because I probably should be checking that river, check calling, unless he bets massive. Because what am I getting value by betting? Fold a3, fold 7 deuce, fold jack deuce, fold 8. Actually, no, we're going to open a7. What am I talking about? We get a call, fold. I do c-bet. And my plan here, also by the way, with suited aces, like if I had ace queen, I'm checking here, and you know if it's ace queen of clubs or ace queen of spades, I can check call. If it's a small bet, I can check call. If it's a big bet, I'm gonna just check fold. Ace queen of hearts, ace queen of diamonds, because it's gonna be too hard to continue. And if he calls this c-bet, I'm only gonna be continuing on cards that give me equity, such as like let's see, such as a 7, an ace, or a spade. But he folds. It's because this is one of my weaker aces. That's why I do c-bet, because he'll have enough stronger aces like ace 9 that he'll just fold with. Fold 9-5, fold Jack-6, fold 8 deuce. Probably don't do anything with 4 deuce, especially not after that. Ace-5, fold. See, I can 3-bet there with, well, actually not versus that stack size, but versus a deeper stack size, if I had like Ace-5 suited, I can go for a 3-bet. But out of position, I don't like 3-betting with offsuit hands. In position is much easier. 8-5 suited. Fold. 10-9 off. I do go for a lighter open here. As I said, I like to steal with suited and connecting hands. We get a call from the small blind, and their range is interesting in this spot because their range is going to have enough kind of mediocrely strong aces and kings like king queen and like ace 10, both suited and unsuited, but he's also going to have hands like pocket 8s, pocket 9s that he for some reason doesn't want to 3-bet pre-flop because he's not a strong player. When he sees this flop, that means that he's going to either have one of those and he'll either fold the flop or he's going to continue all the way. And so we go for a c-bet, and if he calls, we're just going to shut down, unless of course, like, you know, we hit runner like a straight or something like that, in which case we wouldn't bluff a turn, but we definitely go for a value on the river for sure. But he does fold, so that's nice. You always have to have a plan. Think about your opponent's range and just think about, you know, when I bet here, what are they going to call me with? Stuff like that. Okay, so 10-8 off. I realize I'm kind of going a bit long here, so I'll probably go for a few more hands than end the video. Fold that, fold that. Uh-oh. Okay, sorry. Sometimes Hold'em Manager crashes for what it's worth, and I gotta reset it. 4-5 offsuit. Let's see what's up. We need 18%. I do defend a connecting hand here. We flop nothing, so we check and fold because we have better hands we can continue with. Anything that, you know, gives us a straight draw, flush draw, or like, you know, a pair. Except sometimes we don't always call with a deuce, but depends. We have 7-9, fold, king 6 suited. Sometimes I go for 3-bets with the suited kings. You know, the types of hands, it depends on their opening range. Sometimes the worst suited king I call with is king 10, but if they're really loose, I can call with like king 9 suited. And then I 3-bet, you know, to as low as like, you know, it depends on their range. If they're really loose, I can 3-bet as low as like king deuce suited. If they're tighter, I'll 3-bet, you know, a tighter king at low as like king 6 or king 7 suited. So you always have to adjust to your opponents. That's what I find. That's the best way to play poker. Having your own strategy, but knowing how to adjust to what villains give and take. Get a walk. That's always a nice give and take. Jack 3 suit, I'm pretty sure we just fold. 8-7 off suit. Ace queen suit, that looks like a play. Okay, so I go for a 3-bet. Get a call. Get another call. And I like to just check back here because we have a decent enough value hand anyway. Last thing I'd want to do is bet and get check raised or check shoved on by like Cabo over here. Because we have enough equity to continue with. We can turn a 10, we can turn a club, we can turn a queen, a king, an ace. There's so many good turn cards for us. That give us more equity that it's okay just to check back here. And we'd also check back here, like I said, with flop top set. Middle set I bet because they're going to have more jack kicks they can continue with. But if I am betting here, it's always small. It's going to be like 1250, 1300 because the pot's so big, it's going to commit a lot of my opponents. Now it's kind of weird in this case because if we bet like 1300 and Marco shoves, then it's going to create a short raise. So we'll see what's up. We check here, you know, brick turn. We see a bet, and he has enough jack X that we can just fold here. So in this case, you know, we risk very little. Now, you always have to consider your opponent's range because, like I said, he can bluff this way if we're just checking too much. So we have to know what cards we can continue on and what kind of hands they'll have in their range. We block a lot of straight draws, too, for what it's worth. You know, he's going to have queen 10. Okay, ace jack. So he's limping. He's getting kind of out of line. This could look like a tilt thing by me, but in reality, he was playing very strangely, and I felt I can go for lighter value against him. I do 5-11. This guy 9 big blinds likes to call again. Very strange. So it kind of reminds me of the last hand. And I do go for a small c-bet on this flop. You know, see what's up. We got some backdoors, but not many. We can get some hands like ace queen to fold. Goes call through, and then check, and I'm just going to check. When they show this much interest, it makes no sense for me. We continue. 624, 624. We only need 10%. You know, it would be nice if I had the ace of spades, because then I know that, you know, I'm much more live if I hit my flush. I could be reverse implied here for sure, so I'd still, if I hit my spade in the river, I'd be playing very cautiously on the river versus the remaining player. I do call, he bets, and I'm just going to fold. And the hand's in the spot. King 8 suited, so we call the 3-bet with 9 big blinds with the King 8 suited. Yes, and the $33 on PokerStars, this still occurs. And he had ace deuce suited. This guy made a boat. This guy turned a flush, so we were dead. We were dead. And just like that, we're down to 6,400 chips. And we still won the tournament, guys. So you can still win tournaments after making mistakes. Fold 3-5, fold 7-10, go to 7-6. I would have played this hand until this guy, you know, 5x'd it. So just fold. We jack off, we'll see what's up. See a raise, we just fold. Ace 8 off. I decided just to jam. This player's been limping such a wide range. You saw before he limped. What did he limp? I think he limped ace deuce suited. And this guy's over limping. That's never very strong. So even though we have a huge amount of big blinds and a hand that's not great, I think it's barely good enough. These guys can have like pocket 4s, pocket 5s, and like weaker aces and ace 8. Obviously we can get ambushed, but I think it's, you know, even though it's a little bit marginal, I think it's fine. We get folds, so we pick up some chips there. Fold 8-9. Actually, that's probably the lowest offsuit ace I go with too. Ace 7 I'm not going with because they'll overlimp enough like pocket 7s themselves, but pocket 8s I see them raising enough of the time. But for suited aces, I can see myself going as low as like ace 5 suited for the jam, just because we have decent enough equity when called. If they do have like pocket 7s, we still have like 33% or something. We'll still win 1 in 3 times, which is pretty decent if you're getting your hand in behind. That's poker for you. Gotta know your equities. Pocket queens, we'll see what's up. So I make it, you know, we see a raise. I make it a small raise because I'm trying to induce a little bit. I could make it a little larger, but on this stack size, it looks too obvious. So I want to make it a little bit smaller so I can have more bluffs in this range if I choose to. See a call and a call. We get this flop. And I'm like, oh gosh, please nobody have flopped the royal. But we still have good enough equity. And in this situation, we only have a pot size bet left on a wet board. So normally when I like, you know, if I'm gonna, you know, c-bet in 3-bet pots as the aggressor, I'm gonna bet 1/3. But with this stack size and this wet a board, but with my strong a hand, I like just to, you know, bet all in, which is like a tiny bit over pot. Then we get a call. Then we get a jam. Then we get a fold. So he just threw in so much dead money in there, and I greatly appreciate that. And yeah, that's a $33 tournament on PokerStars. Poker is not dead, FYI. Let's sweat it together. His pocket 10s with a 10 of diamonds. I'm just praying for like an offsuit jack. Well, obviously offsuit. I'm just praying for the board to pair at this point. He hits a 10 and then a bricks. So we're safe. We had to fade the diamonds and the straights. We somehow managed to do that. That was fun. We didn't have that much equity either. What was our equity? Oops. Our equity was only 56%. So we basically want to flip after flopping a set. Very interesting spot. So all of a sudden we're up to 21K. And with that, I'm going to end the video. And let's run it up from 21K in the next video.